Females probably do in practice need to do more than males to get to the same point. I think that's the sad reality of where we are. A lot of my friends and family who are not involved in the law and have not seen the hours that we sometimes do think my life is a lot like Suits, which unfortunately is not always the case. The long hours certainly are the case.
Singapore has foreign law practice, qualifying foreign law practice, joint law venture and law alliance. What are they?
In Singapore, there are fairly kind of stringent measures around what foreign lawyers can practice, which is the same as many other jurisdictions. And so there are different ways in which you can approach Singapore law. Some law firms will not practice Singapore law at all. So that would be your typical foreign law practice. They have a license to practice here in Singapore. But what they're allowed to practice is their own area of law. So for me, that would be English law, for example. A variant of that is a qualifying foreign law practice, which is a foreign law practice which has a license to practice certain aspects of Singapore law in addition to its own law. So if we had one of those, for example, we could practice English law and certain areas of Singapore law. A joint law venture is where you have a Singapore law firm on the one hand and a foreign law firm on the other hand, and they effectively create almost a third entity, which is the joint law venture. Through that joint law venture, they can practice Singapore law in the same way as a Singapore law firm would. So unlike the other two examples I've given, you have with the JV a third structure, which is a joint venture between those two law firms, and you can practice Singapore law via that vehicle. And then finally, the Foreign Law Alliance is what we have actually at HFW. We have a Foreign Law Alliance with a firm called Asia Legal. And in that structure, both law firms retain their individual identity. So we have HFW, we have Asia Legal, but we share offices, we share resources. And the idea is that we have a very close relationship and that we can effectively offer Singapore law advice. So it's a very close cooperative type of relationship, and it works well for us. Unlike the JV, as I say, where you create a third entity, this one is one where the two entities retain their separate entities, but there's a very close degree of cooperation, and it works well for us in practice.
Do you have more friends in legal industry or outside?
Do I have more friends in the legal industry or outside the legal industry? Very good question. I would say in Singapore, it's probably about half and half. You know, I came here 9 years ago in order to work in the legal industry, not knowing anybody. So I think it's probably quite natural that a lot of the people I hang out with and a lot of people I see are in the legal industry as well. But fortunately, I'm not friends with just lawyers. I do have people who I can see and talk to about other things as well. In the UK, it's quite different. Obviously, I grew up in the UK, so I have lots of friends from school and from university, and actually relatively few of them have ended up in the law. So I'd say in the UK the majority are outside the law, but in Singapore it's probably about half and half. And you know, it's nice having friends within the law to compare experiences, but sometimes you need to speak to someone, I think, who's not involved in the law.
How to attend business meetings not looking like an idiot?
It's something that I think you will worry about throughout your entire career. It's not something that just junior lawyers will worry about. I think it's something that you will always be concerned about. And there's so many different elements to it. The first, and perhaps one of the most important tips, is to be on time. I found that to be an invaluable tip, and it sounds very simple, but as you're running around, it's very easy to get waylaid and delayed and turn up to places late. But that does a number of things. You know, firstly, it potentially irritates the people that you're meeting. But secondly, and perhaps more importantly, you turn up very flustered. You're not calm. You're not in your zone. So I think that's my number one tip. Number two tip is to dress appropriately. It's another thing that if you turn up at a meeting and everyone is very formal and you're not, you immediately feel like you're on the back foot, and it can actually affect how the meeting will go. And you know, you'll find that it varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. In Singapore, we're relatively casual. Hong Kong is similar. But if you go to places like Japan or other places, you'll probably be expected to wear your suit and tie and everything else. So just have a think about that and make sure you're dressing appropriately. And the final thing really is to make sure that you're prepared. Think about what you want to get out of the meeting. Think about the questions and the points that may be raised. I'm a firm believer that there's not really anything such as over preparing. I really think, particularly when you're junior, you should go there over prepared. You should have done absolutely everything, thought about all the questions that could come up, and done more than is perhaps necessary. Now, as you go on in your career, you will find that you don't need to do quite so much in order to prepare for meetings because you've dealt with similar situations, you know the sorts of things that might arise. But I really think, particularly at the start of your career, there really is no such thing as over-preparing.
In movie, lawyers are always very busy and then drink a lot of wines. Is that true in reality?
I would say that's partly true, yes. The busy part is definitely true. The wine part is occasionally true and nice when we can get round to that sort of thing. I mean, I think a lot of my friends and family who are not involved in the law and have not seen the hours that we sometimes do think my life is a lot like Suits, which unfortunately is not always the case. The long hours certainly are the case. The interesting cases and deals we work on certainly are the case. I think what it perhaps doesn't show you is some of the more grueling times when you're sweating over books or sweating over documents, and all the things that go on behind the scenes before you close a deal or before you go to court or go to arbitration. But ultimately, all of that stuff is our day-to-day, and it's what makes the whole thing, the whole process and the outcome all the more rewarding in the end. So we are typically quite busy. Different areas of the law are different, but ours does often require fairly long hours. But at the same time, that's one of the reasons that it's so rewarding in the end. And, if you can cap it off with a glass of wine, then all better.
As a male lawyer, do you see more pressure and hurdles than your female colleagues?
I think it's fair to say that unfortunately it is more the reverse of that at the moment. I think females probably do in practice need to do more than males to get to the same point. I think that's a sad reality of where we are, but I think things are improving. I mean, the industries that we work in, shipping, insurance, trading, are very traditionally conservative industries, and they are traditionally male-dominated industries. And I think that does, to a certain extent, permeate into the legal practice in those areas as well. But as I say, we are improving in those areas, and we are making a conscious push to make it more equal, make sure that we're more diverse. We're now at a stage as a firm, HFW, where over 50% of our associates are females. We need to do more at a partnership level. We're aware of that, but we have now increased representation of females on our management board, and we have internal targets and checks to make sure that we are getting to where we need to be. So as I say, I think as at today, it's probably slightly more difficult for females than males, but it is something that certainly we as a firm are looking to address.
What's the perfect legal job in your opinion, other than yours?
Thankfully, I love my job. I think you do need to love your job to get anywhere in the legal industry, because it's hard. It's hard work. It's long hours. But as I said earlier, it's very rewarding ultimately. So I do think I have as close as you might get to the perfect legal job. But if I wasn't doing this, what I would probably be most interested in is either sitting as an arbitrator or as a mediator, seeing the other side of practice. A lot of our lawyers do actually sit as arbitrators. It's something you can do whilst you're in legal practice. And it's something that a lot of lawyers will do after they've retired from day-to-day private practice. They may go and sit as arbitrators. And I think it's a fascinating area. Arbitration really is blooming across the world, in Asia particularly so. And I think it's a fascinating job, and you get to perhaps select your hours a bit better than you do in private practice. And mediation, I think, is a really fascinating area, and I think it's something that's going to become much more relevant as time progresses. I think in Europe and elsewhere, mediation has been very prevalent for a long time, and in Asia we're catching up to a certain extent. But I think that a career as a mediator would be a fascinating place to be at the moment, and something where it's only going to get busier and busier as time goes on.